Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Brass Junkies. I'm your host, Andrew Hitz, and I gotta say, it is really good to be back. When Lance LeDuc and I kicked this thing off back in, I think it was 2014, we released an album. We did not release an album every other week. We released an episode every other week. Ever since then, there was one time where there was one episode that was one day late. Other than that, it took us exactly 200 weeks to get to episode 100. It took us exactly 400 weeks to get to episode 200. Well, last month in May, the week of an episode that was supposed to air, which I was scrambling. I had a plan to pull it off. Well, I got a call that I'd been dreading for a while, that my father, George Hitz, was on his way to the hospital, and that we didn't know if it was bad, but it did not seem good. And I had to drop everything and drive from D.C. up to Boston, and he passed away about a day and a half later in the hospital. So the good news is that it was quick. He was just shy of his 82nd birthday. And understandably, there was no TBJ episode that week. It just wasn't a priority. And I just have not been in a headspace to put one out. So it's actually been a couple of months, since I put out an episode. And I just have to be okay with that. That was bothering me for a little while. And then I just said, you know what? It is what it is. I'm so thrilled with today's guest, Dr. Luke Spence, who is a fantastic trumpet player and advocate, and you're going to hear this was like the perfect conversation for me to jump back in with. But before I get to Luke, I just wanted to talk very briefly about my dad. And since I still, even though I lost my father and I've been mourning, I still specialize in awkward segues. So I'm going to thank Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for the Brass Junkies. Michael Parker has met my father a couple of times, and I think I would put a smile on his face at how intentionally awkward that was. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba Mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just really briefly, I wanted to say that starting in the 4th grade, at the age of 9, my father did not miss, my mother as well, but I'm sticking to my father right now. My father did not miss a single concert that I played from 4th grade through 12th grade. And the only reason he started missing them in college was because they were 1,000 miles away. And that was when my sister's athletic career, she's 4 years younger than me, really started to ramp up. And I was in band, jazz band, orchestra, chorus. I was in the Massachusetts Youth Wind Ensemble at New England Conservatory on Friday evenings. I was at the Boston, I was in the Greater Boston Youth Symphony Orchestra at BU on Sundays. I performed at Tanglewood in the summers. He was at literally every single one of those. And to the point where when I carpooled into NEC, we lived like 25 miles out of Boston with some other kids that lived out in the suburbs. I always got to ride in with somebody else, and then my dad drove a group of us home every Friday. He used to get to work super early on Fridays as an electrical engineer so that he could leave early from work on Friday so that he would get to my weed. Those rehearsals were from 4:30 until 7. He would get to rehearsal around 5:15, and he would sit there. He would get to work early so that he could sit there and listen to almost 2 full hours of my wind ensemble's rehearsal every week. As a result of that, there's an entire generation of brass players from Boston, which there's like a really, really impressive list of people who I got to grow up with in Boston, who some of whom are really famous now in the brass world, that all know my father, like really know him. He was the only parent in there. He would sit back there with his Boston Globe, and he just, it was his favorite place in the world. And that really sums up that, and the fact that he asked Sam when I was a freshman said, does my kid have a chance at this? And Sam, to his credit, said, if you get him the right equipment, he's not going to have any problems putting food on the table. And then my dad was like, all right, and then he bought me an amazing tuba that I still have today, the Rudy Meinl, that was played by Sam in Empire and played by Charles Villarubia and Dallas Brass, and then I've played in Dallas Brass and Canadian Brass. I've not. It would be news to Canadian Brass if I'd played with them. Boston Brass. It was one of those towns. Anyway, thank you for anybody who's here to hear Luke. I thank you for indulging me to talk briefly about my father. I did want to segue that the next episode is a listener's choice, and so please. Email me, andrew@hitsacademy.com. Email me with any questions about anything, please. Those episodes are always, I've already got some questions. One is a specific one about my dad, which I'm going to talk about. But yeah, so please send those in. And I'm going to do my best to get regular again. It's funny, summer is a hard time for me personally, like in terms of where I am. Spend a lot of time in the Berkshires where I can't record. And also a lot of people have, they're either like busy doing solo stuff or they're on family vacation. So I tend to get ahead in the month of May. And the month of May went completely sideways in the worst way possible for me. So that did not happen this year. I just got to be okay with it. So anyway, I love you, Dad. I miss you every single day, literally. But boy, did I hit the lottery, and I had him for a really long time. If you've never lost a parent, I do not recommend it. 0 out of 10 stars. Yeah, it sucks. And some of you, guarantee you, somebody listening to my voice lost both parents really early. My heart breaks for anybody that has to deal with it. But my dad checked all the boxes. I think he was, he was happy. So anyway, as I was saying, Dr. Luke Spence, just a fantastic musician, an even better human. I think you're going to really enjoy this. And we had a great bonus episode as well, which you can access 1 week after this comes out via Patreon, patreon.com/the Brass Junkies. And thank you to all the Patreon patrons for your patience. There has not been anything that's come your way in 2 months, and that's because I just had to put this thing fully on an unplanned pause. But Luke and I talked about, I asked him who someone is that he's worked with in the brass world that he looks up to and why, and he gave me a few names. And then he also has this really cool thing on his website. He's got like this flowchart of the trumpet lineage of who he's studied with, like with Chris Gecker, that leads to, and it's like leads all the way back to Arbin. It's like and Stamp, and yeah, it's pretty wild. So we talked about that, and I also asked him some other stuff. So yeah, it was a really fun bonus episode. As you'll hear, Luke and I had a great time. He's lots of smiles. And that's it. It's good to be back. Thank you all for your patience very much. I really do appreciate it. The spring has sucked, and I'm looking forward to summer being a little bit better. So without further ado, let us get to the conversation that I had with trumpet player extraordinaire, Dr. Luke Spence. And today on the Brass Junkies, did you like that, by the way, how I did that kind of fake smile thing? It's like you did I saw you start to laugh. That's why, yeah. Well, because you figure out when you edit these things that if you don't have like a resting, because otherwise it fades in when you're going or something weird, and it's very disturbing. So, but this is also when you're live and you see, and it's like that is not a genuine smile. Anyway, we are here. He's already been freaked out, and it hasn't even started. Trumpet player extraordinaire, Dr. Luke Spence. Luke, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. You're doing a lot of really cool stuff. We're going to talk about an album that you put out recently called the 20th Century Art Songs. You are a visiting professor at SUNY Potsdam. You just did a recital in Minneapolis, but we're going to start with with what seemed like, I'm not sure if you use this word, but connecting the dots myself, seemed like a kind of a transformative experience for you and a a bunch of other people. That was just like last weekend, wasn't it? Which
Yeah,
was the International Pride Orchestra. So you are a founding board member. Can you tell us a little bit about the organization and then how you got involved? And then I'd love to unpack the event, which I just saw heartfelt tribute after heartfelt tribute, and just people just being very appreciative of the art and of a lot of other things. So how did this thing come to be?
absolutely. So a dear friend of mine from Oberlin, his name is Michael Roost. He's the founder and director. He's actually recovering tuba player. Um, so I met him during my time at Oberlin. He was actually conducting the brass ensemble, and I worked under him. He was the score librarian. So I did a lot of stuff with that. And we've kept in touch over the years. And I think this was during the pandemic. He just kind of came up with this idea of we need, we need an LGBTQ plus orchestra. And a couple years later, now it finally happened. So he approached me. I guess it was last summer, maybe late last summer. But I agreed to join the board. I think I joined like last August or September. So we've been working ever since to get auditions going, get the website up and running and all that stuff. But I immediately just connected with this mission. I mean, what we initially saw from the orchestra was we don't want this just to be a bunch of bring all the gays on board. We're going to have a great gay time. We really, I mean, and as fun as that is,
Sure.
we we wanted this to be at the heart a charity organization.
Mhm.
So we wanted to bring folks from all over the world, LGBTQIA plus and allies for that matter. Anyone is welcome in this umbrella. But they're for people who are really driven to serve the LGBTQIA plus community. So the mission of this orchestra is to do just that. So every year we plan to be in a different city, most likely during June, which is traditionally Pride Month.
Mhm.
But we're going to partner up with an organization based in that city and use our organization as a vehicle to help raise funds for that organization. So this year was the first year, and it made absolute sense to do it in San Francisco, which was really the heart, the center of the gay rights movement. And we raised funds for Lyric, which is an organization in the city. I think it's one of the oldest, if not the oldest and largest youth LGBTQ plus centers. So they do amazing work for LGBTQ plus youth that are homeless, that need that need help in different ways. They provide you know screenings, STI screenings, HIV, all that good stuff. Just really, really important work. So we were just thrilled to be able to raise quite a bit of money for them too, which was really nice. So
How did that feel to be a part of something that was so fulfilling, which we're going to get to in a second, but also to like do like concrete good, like raising funds like that for an important organization?
oh, it's the best feeling in the world. Um, when we do our regular gigs and stuff, and sometimes it can feel just a little bit self-serving,
Mhm.
and it's just a totally different mindset. I think when you go into a concert with that in mind, that you're here to serve and you're here to be a part of something um, bigger than yourself, and to do good for your community. And as a member of that community, it feels even more important and even more powerful and gratifying. All that stuff.
Yeah, there's some layers there, isn't there?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, to your
a
personal
couple. Yeah.
experience. Yeah, just a few. Um, that's I'm well, I asked you ahead of time if you were interested in answering this question because I want to be careful. What I'm going to ask you is why does a group like the International Pride Orchestra need to exist? And I wanted to ask if you wanted the opportunity to ask that because asking that without a caveat, without an asterisk is making you no one. If I say I'm like forming a brass quintet, like no one goes, well, why should it exist, right? And so I don't want to But to
Yeah,
some people, to some people might, well, some people have already decided that it shouldn't exist. Of course, I don't need to tell you that.
of course. Yeah.
But then there are some people who are maybe like genuinely wondering, why does something like this need to exist? So, what would speak only to them? What would you say?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because there's like about a million different ways I could
Of
take
course.
this. I mean, in my opinion, I think that this organization is long overdue. I mean, really, you have some really incredible organizations such as the International Women's Brass Conference. You have Sphinx. You have these organizations that have been around for a while, really serving those people, those demographics, and it's so this was sort of just like, oh yeah, why doesn't this exist? There are LGBTQ kind of like queer orchestras, bands, and stuff kind of all over, but there's never been one kind of single international like, hey, this is us now. Um, so I think in that sense, it was kind of long overdue.
Hmm.
But what was really interesting, and I think shocking for a lot of people. We all felt it the first day. I mean, of course, we were all excited. We're like, yeah, this seems like a great thing. But then sitting in that chair the first day and just the atmosphere, I think we were all kind of like, holy shit, like oh, this is what it feels like to be in a group of you know, your siblings, your brothers and sisters and siblings. It's just like it's your community. When I play in groups, when I play in orchestras, yeah, there's, I mean, we the gays like to do music and theater and all that stuff. So they're around, right? They're there. Um, um, but surprisingly, kind of few and far between. And I played plenty of gigs where I don't necessarily feel like I can be myself. I think with age, as I'm getting older, I start to give less fucks. To be honest, I'm just like, okay, you know what? I'm tired of trying to be someone else. I'm gonna be me.
Right.
But there certainly are, um, sometimes we take those gigs where we just feel a little bit like you can't be yourself. And I remember, talking to friends, especially in the brass section. Oh my God. Talking to friends and colleagues in here, and we all have our stories of how we've kind of had to butch it up, so to speak, in the brass section, or you're just kind of sitting there and you know, maybe some of the guys are making jokes about other things that we can't relate to about women, and it's like, oh, okay, I don't, yeah. So it's
I'm sorry, it's not funny. I just the way you put that is why I was laughing. Because yeah,
it's
just
not
to be
funny,
clear,
okay? Stop.
yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a totally different feeling, and it's just kind of, I think, you know so I will say that it took, by the end of the first day, I think we all got there, but there actually was this feeling at first, and I remember talking to some people about it. We were just a little bit, kind of on edge. We were like, is this okay? Is this all right? Are we gonna and I think that comes from so many years of all of us collectively, feeling like we couldn't be ourselves. And then finally you're in a group, but it's kind of like, we're like, okay, is it safe? But
Right.
then by the end of the first rehearsal, it was like, oh yeah, okay, we've really got something here,
Hmm.
something special. And I remember even after like the second day, a friend of mine was just crying because he was like, I just don't want this to be over already.
Hmm.
It's really hard. And
Right.
another thing that I'll say about a lot of people posting, um, we don't really have the words to describe what it feels like, or what that felt. And I don't think that I'll ever have the adequate words to be able to describe kind of what that was, but it just felt like I was home.
Wow.
And it was just, yeah, just really, really special.
Wow. That's so awesome. I mean, that's like, yeah, that makes me feel motivated. And like just hearing how genuine that is. Um, I'm really good at making absolutely anything about me. So I'm going to share a
It's
quick
all
story.
about you,
So
honey.
I'm going to
It's
share a quick story about me. No, it's like, but it's within the context of like, I can't even imagine. I have played one gig that I can think of in my entire life where I wasn't comfortable being myself, and that was about 5 years ago or so. Got hired for a gig here in DC, and it turned out that was right like the day after the someone in our government threatened to annihilate the country of Iran, like, and that was brought up from the stage, and they were given a standing ovation. Like there, I mean, there was like 1,500 people who were screaming, like with like, yeah, I mean, like it was absolute. And I was a sub in an orchestra with a few other people, and I looked over at like the one trombone player as sub, and he was like, "What have we gotten ourselves into?" And so, this was like this much one time in my life, and that gig was just like was exhausting. So I cannot
Oh, I bet.
imagine going to every gig wondering whether I can. I just can't. I mean, it's like what I experienced times a million, right? And I just can't. I can't fathom. I cannot fathom that. Sometimes I have to keep my mouth shut, right? I mean, you know, it's like, but like everybody does, right? I mean, so do you, right? I mean, it's like, and then
Yeah.
you have all of these other layers. So like, of course, this needs to exist, right? Like, of
Sure.
course.
And of course, and and I'm speaking from a person with immense privilege. I'm a cis, white man. So it's, and then I think about my other colleagues, the women, non-binary people, trans folks, people of color, who, I can get by. I can
Right.
pass. I can butch it up. I can do, whatever I need to do to feel quote safe in that moment. Um, but the other folks don't necessarily have that privilege. So I think the fact that it was so meaningful to me, and it's like I can only fathom how incredibly powerful that is for those folks. So yeah, to answer that question, I think this organization is absolutely necessary. And as being someone who on the board, and I was involved a lot in the advertising. So I would do the Facebook ads and all that stuff and tailoring the ads. And man, it was like playing defense with some of these hate comments. I'd have to go and delete people and block them. And it's just, and that's just kind of more proof. It's like, okay, well, you're actually kind of, if you would just shut up, then maybe one day we wouldn't need this. But you're kind of just proving the point by being so hateful. So,
Again, I laugh because of the way you're putting it, not what you're saying. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
um, the anyone who, well, shit, anybody who listens to the podcast is going to find this funny, but anybody who knows me well is going to find this really funny. That there was like a few years ago when my son was just being that six at the time, like he was being extra six, and he was just talking and talking and talking. He was talking out of his ass, and I wasn't giving him room to be six, I think, and I actually said the words to him. You do realize that not talking is always an option, right? And the funny thing is not me being like, I wasn't screaming it at my kid. I wasn't being cruel to him, but I heard those words leaving my mouth, and I went, "Oh," because I was thinking about that. I was like, how many people, like, how many times has Luke wanted to say that to me or anybody else, like it just hasn't, it's like, oh, this is what being a parent is about. Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's a mirror. That's like, what
It's
a
a mirror.
shame though.
Yeah.
Like I did, all that you were trying to do was get together, found an organization where you're raising money for organ. But I guess that's the problem, is that you're raising money for organizations that they also don't think should exist. And so it's like, but just let people be. Just let people be
Right.
who they are. And yeah,
And another thing that I got to was that, oh, you're being so exclusive. It's like, well, actually, like we are totally welcome to all allies.
right,
And in fact, that was, in our conversations with the board, that was something that not that people were advocating against it, but I was really inspired by the International Women's Brass Conference. I think that model of it's like y'all are welcome, anyone can be
right.
here. I remember just feeling, that was another place. That's probably a good like second place to this one was where I just felt like, oh, wow, oh my God, I can be me, and you and I see it the same way. Great. And yeah, even though I'm not a woman, but I felt very much included in that space. I felt
Right.
celebrated. I was able to celebrate them, and it was beautiful. So, but we're happy to do that with IPO as well. We want everyone to be on board.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, talk to me about. I didn't when I saw like the photos and stuff online. I was not familiar with every musician, but every single musician I did know is an absolute monster player, like monster player. So I wanted to give you a second to just talk about like what that weekend was like, just like artistically, even in a vacuum, because I'm sure that the sounds coming out of that orchestra were world class.
Yeah. It was, I think that was a highlight was we got past the first day and we all starting to get a little more comfortable with each other. And I've never played in a group that was just so like, the conductors are kind of like, yeah, fuck it, anything goes. You want to, the great example is our tubist, Sean Kennedy. I don't know if you know Sean, and his Peacock is his
Hmm.
drag name.
Right?
He's a dear friend. I was so happy he was able to do it. And he let him have it. Like the last couple, we played Chike 4, like the last notes of like the first and fourth movements, he was just like, I'm gonna blow the roof off
He
this
was
thing.
present.
And he was present. And the conductor, Robert Moody, who conducts the Memphis Symphony, he's like, he's like, normally I'd be like, no, but yeah, just let's just do it. I look over, and I guess they'll just take us to the brass section. So we had, Sean Kennedy on tuba. We had Jen Hinkle playing bass trombone.
Hmm.
If you don't know Jen, she's a phenomenal player.
Hmm.
Um, and then we had Sasha Romero,
Hmm.
principal trombone of the Met. I look over the whole trombone section and the tuba during the pizzicato movement. They're just like, and they're just like having a great time.
It's
And they
great.
did that. I mean, I look behind me in the percussion section's doing it too, and they're just like,
That's great.
I would never see that happening in a normal orchestral setting.
Right?
And the conductor was like, you know what? If you want to do that in the concert, just do it.
That's great.
Um,
Yet
it was
you
yeah.
don't. None of you need my validation, but it's amazing to me. Like when I've subbed with some world class orchestras, and at the end, the crowd can like go bonkers, and then everybody stands up and they're standing there with like an expression on their face, like they're waiting for the bus, or like I mean, like something that's like not awful, but like not at all, just like something very transactional. I mean, and so like that's amazing that you get to watch a low brass section that's enamored with a string only section of a Tchaikovsky symphony. Like that's good in my
It's
opinion.
good. There
Nobody
was there
asked, but
was
it's my damn
yeah,
podcast. So
yeah. I
yeah,
didn't I didn't
that's
ask. I
that's good.
didn't ask.
Editing this out. Sorry, I keep it. I keep taking. I'm totally not. I'm too lazy to find
Keep it
it. So
in. You
yeah.
better keep it in.
It's staying in because I'm too late. I talk a big game, but it's staying in. And I'm just kidding. I wouldn't have taken that out anyway. It's hilarious. Take us through the rest of the brass section.
Yeah. So I mean, they're just yeah. Low brass was just phenomenal, and then the trumpet section was Marissa Young's, myself. Marissa teaches at Winthrop University.
Hmm.
Myself, and then Ethan Bensdorf was playing principal
He's pretty
trumpet, and
good.
he's fine. He's okay. Um, he was great. I think that the three of us just got along really really well, and it was just it's one of my favorite trumpet sections I've ever played in, and it
That's
was
great.
just yeah, it
That's
was
awesome.
so easy to play with them, and they're just incredibly humble people, both of them. There's just
That's great.
no ego whatsoever, which is shocking for a trumpet player. I know. So that's why
There
I
was
felt
some
the
low
need to
hanging
bring
fruit
in
there.
the
I
yeah.
didn't go there. I was like, no, he's talking about actually important stuff, so I'm not gonna. And then you went there, so yeah, there you
Oh
go.
no,
You
I'll
were
go
like
there.
looking
I'll go
like,
there.
wait, he's gonna go there, right? I guess I will. Yeah, that was funny.
I don't think I've ever had so much fun playing, even traditional rep. It was just it was somehow it was just so new for us. And I think also being able to wear whatever you wanted to. We had a rule that was cover your nips, bits, and butts, because some people were asking, like, can we wear thongs on stage? We're like, no, we want you to express yourself, but we gotta someone's got to sit in that seat afterwards. Um, but I loved that the people were just like, I want to wear anything on stage, and it was pretty much an anything goes situation. Whatever
Oh, that's
whatever you
wonderful.
feel best, allows you to express yourself. And I think that too had another, was another layer of just being able to just kind of chill out and be yourself on stage. And I think that that really translates into the music. I think we feel it together, as an orchestra, as a section. I think the audience feels it, when you're comfortable in your body, in yourself,
Right.
I think it really shows.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah,
Wow.
another sorry, really quick, the wind section was also phenomenal. A really cool thing about we had two military folks. We had Kat Robinson and Troy Palantonio. He's in the Army Field Band. He's a flute player, and they actually got permission to wear their uniforms on stage.
Hmm.
And that was just it's so powerful. And I know I don't recall about Kat, but I know that Troy entered into the army when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was in effect.
Was just thinking about how that wasn't really all that long ago. So yeah,
Not
in
yeah,
the grand
not at
scheme of
all.
things, that was not long ago. Wow.
So to go from that
Wow.
to however many years later, getting permission from your chain of command and then being able to wear that proudly
Right.
on stage, I think is just it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. It was
Wow.
just really cool. Yeah.
Oh, that's really great. Last question. I could talk to you about this for a long time, but I want to hit some of that other stuff. Last question about IPO. What is next for the group?
Yes. So we are well, we're taking a little bit of a break after, we just need to
Good.
like chill for a second. But once board meetings, kind of pick back up, we're going to start thinking about next year, and that's going to probably happen within the next month. I think
Hmm.
we may announce, we're thinking about possibly New York for next year, but we're not sure. Um, but the idea is to pick a new city each year, and one of the things that we want to really look at is ways of expanding the organization so that it can truly be as inclusive as we want it to be.
Hmm.
Because in its current form, in being someone who has to, listen to the auditions and accept or decline people, it just feels so wrong.
Right.
Um, People that are like, "Oh my God, this is so cool! I've been waiting for an orchestra like this,"
Oh,
and
then
to
you say
have to
no.
tell them no is just it's heartbreaking,
Hmm.
and it just doesn't feel right. So we're looking at, and we're a brand new organization, so
Hmm.
we're building, but I think we would love to see this turn into something like a conference, where we can have perhaps different groups. We can have chamber groups. We can have this and that, so that anyone, truly anyone who wants to be a part of it, can be.
Hmm.
I think that's the goal a
Yes.
little bit down the line, but yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I my last thoughts on this are that it is one thing during COVID or any time to be like, what would be a good idea is this, and then like the amount of things that have to happen between. I mean, no one would guess that that's just like a couple of phone calls and then everybody shows up in San Francisco. But unless you've, and I want to be clear, I've never hosted an in-person thing of this magnitude, but
Mhm.
I've put together a lot of things from scratch that are at scale, and it's like, even after you've done it a bunch of times, it's shocking how much work goes into this, and then you involve a team, and then some people pull extra weight, some people pull less weight, and then navigating that, and I mean, it's just like so the fact that this thing happened and that you're that it's gonna happen again and like it's awesome because it takes yeah, coming up with the idea is actually easy compared to
Right,
the
right.
executing poorly, which it sounds like you got some very thoughtful people that are running that thing, which means if you do this 5 times, that the first one is going to be a mess compared to the fifth, right? Because you're going to learn
Right,
every single
right.
time. So well, kudos to you and to everybody for the I'm trying to think of the conductor's name, the director, the recovering
Oh,
tuba player.
Mike,
Yes,
Mike Roost. Yeah,
Mike. Yes, that was it.
yeah,
The yeah, congratulations to all of you for yeah, for pulling this off. It's I'm very glad that it exists. So
yeah. Me
and
too. Me
yeah,
too.
and if you're not represented, like if you're then like make your own thing happen too. That's the beautiful thing now. It's like it used to be that even just getting in touch with people like kind of required gatekeepers, and now it's just like it's all gone. Like anybody can, I mean, Everybody should, email Luke, tell him your favorite color or something. Yeah, it's like it's
Please don't.
easy.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's
You
easy to
put
get
my
in touch
email
with
right up on the
people. Yeah,
screen
yeah,
there. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it's flashing and yeah, exactly, flashing orange right now. Um, so you mentioned that you all had raised money for Lyric in San Francisco, and actually, I wanted to take the first ad slot here to talk about the charity that I am sitting on the board of directors of, the Mockingbird Foundation, which you can find at ember.org. We just announced our most recent round of funding for supporting music education throughout the U.S. And I wanted to highlight. This will take like 30 seconds. I wanted to highlight three of the grantees because they're. I just grabbed the first three off of the list. Austin Classical Guitar of Austin, Texas, which was $5,000 for guitars for student classes in youth detention centers. Chief Lesky Schools, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong. It might be Leschy Schools of Puyallup, Washington, which is $10,000 for drums for classes at a 100% Native American school. And then the third one was the Mulaski Junior High School through Clark County School District of Las Vegas, Nevada. Excuse me, Nevada. It's not pronounced Nevada. I'll get emails. I know it's Nevada. I know I messed it up, but please forgive me. Which was $9,858 for various instruments for the band, orchestra, and guitar programs at a public middle school. So if you would like to learn more about, I'm like fiercely proud of Mockingbird. We do not own a stapler. We do not rent a single foot of office space. Our legal counsel are volunteers. I mean, like, it's our expenses are as low as humanly possible, and so when you donate a dollar, damn near close to that entire dollar gets turned around for music education grants in at this point all 50 states, totaling over $2 million. So if you want to go to brassjunkies.com/mockingbird, then you can learn more. And last thing I'll say is that we are also fiercely proud of the fact that don't get me wrong, if a few organizations want to give us like a really big, like few organizations want to give us $1 million, I will gladly stop saying what I'm about to say. But I think it's really hip that we have, and I don't know the numbers. The numbers are known, just not by me. But we have gotten a vast majority of our donations are from individuals giving like small amounts rather than corporations or other larger funds. And so it's kind of like it's a very grassroots thing to be able to raise like over $2 million like in small increments. So even if you want to give $5 or $10 or 20 or $1 million, we would also accept that. So anyway, again, that's the Mockingbird Foundation, which you've all heard me mention it before. I've been on the board for a little over 10 years now. And yeah, it's the most rewarding thing that I do. So there. Well, I mean, other than speaking to trumpet players on this podcast. So yes, it's the second most. The parenting is like third. Yeah, Mockingbird slots right in
A
between
distant third. Yeah.
speaking to the likes of Dr. Spence and of being a father. So okay. Now awkward segue from that into your fantastic album, 20th Century Art Songs. Can you tell us about first of all, everybody should go listen to it. If you like it and you want to, possibly flirt with the dangerous prospect of Luke making another album, then you should buy it if you are able. So, and I'm sure that I won't. I'm going to speak for Luke. And correct me if I'm wrong. He'd rather that you stream it and listen to it than not listen to it. But if you want to
Yes.
buy the music, then like buy it because good things come from buying music from artists at this point because it happens so rarely. But how did you get the inspiration to make this thing in the first place?
Yeah. So this was a while ago. I mean, it was really this was the last thing that I recorded right before the pandemic. So
Mm-hmm.
this was the release of the album was kind of a long time coming, and it was part of my doctoral research. But the notion of playing art songs is just something that's kind of been embedded in my identity as a performer for many years. Started when I was in high school, actually. Um, and as I, just I think, well, if I talk about maybe my first experiences playing that, I felt like it was, one of the first times that I could just kind of make music sort of unencumbered by, some of these, crazy technical stuff. I was able to just like fully be me in that music. It was kind of the first time I found my voice, found myself in music.
Hmm.
So obviously, once you feel that for the first time, it's like, okay, this isn't going anywhere, and I want to keep doing it. So I think on pretty much every recital I've done after that point, I've always included vocal music, um, and particularly I've gravitated to 20th century um, art songs. I love Mahler, Poulenc, that sort of thing. It was a little bit earlier Schubert, in the 19th century, but I always felt that vocal music was a way that I could express myself in the best possible way.
Hmm.
Um, so when it came time to do my doctoral research, I really um, I wanted to hone in on that more. I actually did a lecture recital on the Rückert of Mahler, um, and so I knew I wanted to include some of those in the CD. But I also just I have a very specific approach to the way that I do things. So accompanying that, those recordings, I actually wrote my dissertation. It was on kind of a how-to. It was a guide on all the things that you could consider when doing these transcriptions. And sometimes I listen to recordings because this is nothing new under the sun. As brass players, this is our pedagogy from day one.
Hmm.
Whether it's doing transcriptions or whether it's doing your Bordoni vocalises or what have you. So it's really a part of our DNA. So it's not that out of the box.
Hmm.
Um, but and actually the original project was I did these with video. So these were music videos, and they actually had subtitle translations, so that the listener can follow along with the text in real time. Because the whole point of art song is that it's a combination of music and text.
Hmm.
So if you're experiencing one without the other, you're not getting the entire scope of what it could be.
Hmm.
That's not to say don't go listen to the CD, because I think I think the music survives incredibly beautifully.
Hmm.
But there's certainly another part of that experience that you're missing out when you don't have the text.
Hmm.
Um, so that's why I had the translations on the music video. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's gorgeous playing. Yeah, it's
Thank you.
yeah, really, really gorgeous playing, and it's um, it's it's understated, which in this context is like an enormous compliment. Is what I'm intending. It's like there's a lot of subtleties. I guess probably a clearer way than saying understated, although they're meaning the same thing in this
Yeah.
context. I hope it's coming across right. But yeah, it's like it's just yeah, there's a
No, you
lot.
sound like
Yeah.
an asshole. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah, I was like, apparently he thought that was a good take. Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah, the arrangement was fine. Piano sounds great. That's like, boy, if I was the recording engineer or the producer, sorry, we'd still be in there. But anyway, no, no, like just really, just a lot of subtlety, like, which is the kind of, I will admit that I don't listen to a lot of not even trumpet, just like brass and piano albums. And that's not to say that there should be less of them or fewer of them. Rather, I just that's just not. I'm much more likely to grab James Brown or Pearl Jam or like Coltrane than. But when it's done right, which this is, like I love it. Tell me about the pianist and how did you settle on them?
Yes. So the pianist is Andrew Welch. He's a dear friend of mine from Maryland. We were doing our DMAs together.
Great.
Um, he is now, oh gosh, where is he? Maybe Rhode Island. I need to give him a call. But he's doing great things wherever he is. He's
Dear
up there
friend,
in
yeah,
the
he's
in the
lived in
Northeast.
like
My
he's lived
dear
in
friend,
he's
wherever
lived
the
in
hell he is.
Hungary for the
Yeah,
last 5 years, but yeah, but we're super close.
my dear friend, and he hates me too. Yeah, no. But oh my God, he's like
He sounds great.
he's just such a it was kind of a no-brainer, asking him. He's just such a sensitive pianist, and he is just he does a ton of vocal coaching. And he actually, he was coaching me through it. And it was I learned so much from him, and just the entire process of talking to different vocalists and other coaches and stuff. But man, Andrew's playing is top notch, and it was so much fun. Even the rehearsal process, the recording process was grueling, as we know it always is. Um, but man, yeah, I mean, you were talking about the subtlety and nuance, and um, we were just able to really connect. They're just really small things, the way that you lift the note, the way that you articulate, and trying to match that together between trumpet and piano, or cornet and piano, I should say, and then me trying to think like a vocalist on top of that. So there's so many levels of the things that came together to make that music.
Hmm. And talk us through the rehearsals. Like, were did the two of you ever? I don't mean like it. I don't mean was it ever contentious, but did you ever have different opinions of how something should be played? And was this a because when there's in a brass quintet, as long as you don't have someone who abstains, and then you have a quartet, and then it could be two against two, and then like yeah, democracy is ruined. But which it's not like there's a scab there that I'm picking from over a decade ago. Not at all. The but no, but like when in a duet, it's like if like 1-to-1, it's like then what do we do? Go to an arbiter. Like so. Were there any artistic things that had to get like kind of figured out, and if so, what was the process?
Yeah. Um, Thinking of all the sorts of sarcastic things I can say. But the the process.
He doesn't live in the
Um,
country anymore. It's fine. He's not going to hear
yeah, he's
this.
in Hungary or whatever. It was well, I came to it with an open mind. I mean, I certainly have. We both, I think, had our histories with some of the stuff that we've done before, stuff that he's done with vocalists, the stuff that I've done practicing, and maybe the different recordings I've listened to. So I think in any scenario when you have rep like that is kind of standardized, when you come together, you're like, well, it goes this way, no, it goes it, but we didn't really do that. I tried to come at it with as much of an open mind as possible, and also, I really and I hope he feels this way, deferred to him on quite a bit of stuff, because of his expertise. I'm like, you played this so much more than I have,
Right.
and you understand. You've spent so much more time with vocalists than I have too. So there really was. I had a tremendous amount of respect for that. But there were some. I'm thinking of one, the Housatonic at Stockbridge. That's that one of the Ives ones. At the end, I remember he wanted to take the very last part, and he wanted to take it really fast, and I kind of wanted to stand my ground. So we found a kind of a common ground. Like, okay, we'll move it a little bit, maybe not as much as I wanted,
True
but
compromises when no
yeah,
one's happy. Yeah, it's like
right.
you're like still too fast. He's like it's too slow. Everything's ruined. Everything's ruined. Good. There we go. Now we hug it
Yeah,
out
we're
and go
both
home.
unhappy. So great, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and
So
it's funny too because just one more quick anecdote.
please.
The another one, the Poulenc Fleur, which translates to flowers. It's just a beautiful tune, but it just kind of hangs in that upper register. It's not high, but it's not low, but it just stays there, and it's on the face the whole time. So I remember when we went to the recording session, he's like, "Oh yeah, we'll knock this one out. It'll be no problem." I was like, "Excuse me, you don't know." So that was actually one of the hardest ones to record for me. But he just plunk kind of the whole time. Um, but yeah, so he learned a little bit from me about what's it like to be a brass player, and we're dealing with some endurance stuff, especially in that recording scenario. I think we did 2 or 3 sessions. Initially, I wanted to record something like 22 songs. So some of them had to get left out just due to time. So we ended up on 17. But yeah, there was I think that's my favorite part of the whole process is the collaborative nature, is me learning from him learning from me, and yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. By the way, you may know this, but the on Apple Music, the first track has an explicit rating, which I was like, oh, so I threw the title into Google Translate, and the title translates to "I breathed a gentle fragrance." I was like, well,
Yeah,
that's not. That
I
doesn't
don't
seem
know.
super racy.
So many people have asked, and it's really not. Yeah, it's the most it's not racy at all. It's yeah, I breathe the gentle fragrance of lime, and it's about the scent of the linden trees sort of wafting into the room, and you're remembering your your love. So there's nothing racy about that one. I don't know why there, but so many people have been like, why is this explicit? Because
Well,
Mahler's writing fuck like a but yeah.
it's pretty funny. This was before your time, but I think maybe the remnants were still around. But like when the parental advisory explicit content warnings first came on to like that was like the greatest marketing like ever because like I'm a teenager and I heard Welcome to the Jungle on MTV and I see that video and it like rewired my brain in real time and I was like this is unbelievable and I still crank that album anytime I think of it. But then you go and see that label and it's like oh yeah I'm buying this and I remember that was the first album that my mother told me I was not allowed to buy and I was like oh yeah totally and then I actually went back to the record store like a week later and I think she knew I was there and then but I went in and she found it and I got in trouble but like that's fine I bought a classic album so maybe you're
Did you
gonna
get to
sell
keep it,
more
or did she take it away?
I did get to keep it because I was like the damage is kind of already done right and she didn't know all the lyrics yeah she'd probably take it away from me now if she knew the lyrics and a couple of those yeah Mr. Brownstone is like it's like it's a guy with a heroin addiction but I actually didn't even know that at that age so I just knew that it ripped so maybe your explicit rating on your album is going to help you sell
I
lots of
hope so.
copies we'll see.
Yeah, or it'll be just a bunch of disappointed teenagers. Yeah.
I might have a friend who is my old college roommate. Ben Denny is his name. Who 20 years
Oh,
ago,
Ben. I know
you,
Ben Denny.
you know
Yeah.
Ben?
Yep.
There you go. One of my dearest friends in the world for a long time now. We were freshmen together at Northwestern and lived together at Northwestern and after Northwestern. But he, 20 years ago, he accidentally on iTunes bought. There was a live Guns N' Roses album that covered like 1987 to 1993, and there was a clean version which he accidentally purchased for like $40, and he couldn't get a new one. And like because me and our other friend John are not nice people. When he figured that out, we were laughing hysterically while pointing at him because it was like, yeah,
That's
all
the
the
right thing to do.
that's the
Yeah.
right thing to do, right? Yeah, it's like we could all pitch in, so you could buy the regular version. We're like, no, you get the rated G version, yeah, where he's like Axl Rose is singing "Shoot." So yeah, it's pretty funny. Speaking of not cursing, the Mary Papert School of Music at Duquesne University is a long-standing sponsor of the Brass Junkies. Yeah, Jim Nova and Chris Wilson, who's actually the new director of brass there. But their faculty is fantastic, and Pittsburgh is this super hip town. It's like hip for a number of reasons, but there's a really cool music scene there. And if I had to choose where I was going to school, like what city I wanted to go and study music in, that would be one of them because there's a rock scene there. There's like weird music scene, which I use weird always as a compliment. The Pittsburgh Symphony, the opera. I mean, they kind of check all of the boxes there, and the brass faculty at Duquesne is just fantastic. So check the show notes if you are either a high school student who's looking for a place to study for undergrad, or you are currently an undergrad who is looking to either get a master's or a doctorate. Then go ahead and check out the video that they made just for Brass Junkies listeners, and thank you very much for their support. So if you decide you want to get like a second master's, Luke, I know you already got a doctorate, but you should think about Duquesne. So um, all right, let's see here. Tell us about SUNY Potsdam. So you are just finished your first year of as assistant visiting professor of trumpet. How's that going? It'd be funny if you were like, "Oh, it's terrible. I hate the students." Yeah, the faculty is like super non-supportive. I just got one more year, and then I'm like, I'm never looking back ever again. No, I already
Yeah,
know.
I hope my dean doesn't hear this because this place no.
I already know it's going great because I asked, because you don't always assume that, especially if it says visiting, and he was like, no, it's going great. So I was like, great, I'll ask you about that, and he said that would be great if you would. So yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, so I know the answer.
I'm the leaving assistant professor of trumpet. Yeah. No, seriously, this has been it's been the best year of my life, hands down. This is
It's great.
the work that I'm doing here is just it's the most meaningful work I've ever done. Um, I love it, and I kind of took a leap of faith coming here. I didn't really know many people. Last summer um, is when I actually first met Dr. Brianne Borden. She's the other professor of trumpet here. Um, and I met her at IWBC. We were judging on a panel together, and we just clicked. And she was like, "Hey, we have this opening. You should definitely apply." So I did, and I eventually got the job. And then I came here, and I found a family. I mean, all of my brass colleagues. We have Brienne, we have Chuck Guy on tuba, we have Chris
Hmm.
Hernacki on trombone, and then we have Lauren Becker on horn. And they're just great people. I love spending my time with them, and we're playing in a quintet. We got a concert tomorrow. My chops are dead, but I just adore them, and I adore um, the place that I work and the students. Oh my God. We have a huge studio, so we're gonna have I think around like 40 next year, which is just nuts. I mean, it's kind of a small school, but we've got a huge school trumpet studio, which is
That's great.
great. So that's job security for me. So that's good. Um, uh, but the students are just wonderful. We have a ton of music education majors. I mean, Crane is historically a school that was founded to be a school for music education. So we have these students that are passionate about being teachers, um, but they're also passionate about their instruments. They're so inquisitive. They're just hungry to learn,
Hmm.
and I love that. So it's I feel #blessed to be here. Um, and I didn't, it's a small town, but I'm really digging it. I went to Oberlin for my undergraduate, so I'm familiar with that kind of small town vibe.
Hmm.
Um, and I thought maybe I would miss the city. I was living in Baltimore before this. My partner is in Philly, but he's actually moving up here in a couple weeks. Um, but it just feels right. So I hope to be here for longer. I know that's not always in my control, but I'm
Sure.
I'm on my second year of a 2-year contract this next year coming up. So we'll see what happens after that. But yeah,
That's
I
great.
hope to stick around. That's my plan at least.
Boy, I love hearing the, like, took a leap of faith, and that it led to the best year of your life. Which
Yeah.
sometimes you take a leap of faith and it ends up just being fine. Sometimes you take a leap of faith and it ends up being like, hindsight, I would not have come.
Right.
Yeah, you're never gonna have a chance. What is the Michael Scott, Wayne Gretzky quote? You missed the. Did you watch The Office? There
Not
was
really.
there was a
Sorry.
fan. No, that's okay. This can be described and it's still funny. That's how funny this is.
Okay.
There's a famous, because usually it's like, okay, you hear that and you're like, oh yeah, that's hilarious. There's a famous Wayne Gretzky, the greatest hockey player to ever live. The a quote from him that you never make any. I'm butchering this, but you never make any shots that you don't take, right? And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that the lead character of The Office, who was the manager of The Office, who was a complete knucklehead, actually wrote on the whiteboard, wrote that quote, and then wrote Wayne Gretzky, and then put that in quotes, and then wrote Michael Scott, his name. So he actually put the. So he stole, right. That's funny, even if you describe it
That's
like
funny.
he even without the character background. That's pretty good when he included the actual person's name in the quote. He didn't. Yeah. So there you go. But that's great. You take that leap of faith, and and it works out. And yeah, anybody who's listening to this who is aspiring to be in a college or orchestra or any ensemble, it's like, if you happen to hit and you're like in a faculty brass quintet where everybody like genuinely likes each other, cherish it. like cherish it, because that can be really rare, and all it takes is one person. Well, and that person could, in this last year, could have been you, right? I mean, where you come in, and I don't mean like
And
being like,
it
well, yeah.
might be me. It
I
I think
wish I
it
was
is
friends
me.
with.
Yeah.
I certainly know of, and I've only heard great things about Charles. But I wish that we were buddies, so that I could be like, oh yeah, yeah, he told me that. Yeah, you're not it, but he said you're pleasant enough. But yeah, I
You
don't.
two would really get along. I think
There you go.
you should
I've
connect because you
I've heard
got
nothing but
very
great things about him.
similar
So.
humor. Yeah.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. Well, then he's a scholar and a gentleman. So, okay. Can you now? I got just a couple other things. I'm gonna get a practicing tip from you, and then we're gonna hang on for the bonus episode, and then we're gonna get you on your way. The Anima Brass. Tell us, give us like the brief rundown of what that is, and why that's so important to you.
Yeah, so Anima Brass is it's one of the two brass quintets that I play in. Obviously, I have my Potsdam Brass Quintet up here,
Hmm.
but before I was here, I was with Anima, um, and a group has been around for a while in a bunch of different iterations. It actually started, I think, as one of the Aspen Fellowship Brass Quintets,
Okay, I didn't know that.
and now our current member, Austin Spazzato, is the only original member from that group.
Okay.
So Austin's a great guy. He's our horn player. Love him. He's based in Annapolis now, and I met him actually when I was working at NOI. I wasn't in NOI, but I was working there. Um, and I met him. He was a horn player there, and then he decided to come to Maryland after that. So then we connected. He's like, "Hey, I've got this brass quintet, but it's been kind of defunct for a while, so we're trying to resurrect it." Um, and so we've done a couple of cool projects. We've, obviously gone to different colleges. We went to Towson, Frostburg, St. John's College in Annapolis. But the cool thing was, that we're really focused on newer music, and specifically kind of championing and promoting music by underrepresented composers. So the project that we got to do a little over a year ago, we're waiting for the album to release. I think it should release later on this year. But it's the music of Callie Malone. And if you're not familiar with her music, definitely check her out. It's very minimal, and she does like a lot of stuff with organ, but she specializes in different tuning systems. So she'll kind of create this minimal music, a lot of drones and stuff, but you'll get some really funky stuff that's just makes your ear wobble, but it's really cool. And I would say maybe don't listen if you're driving, because it can like actually put you into a trance. So I did that once. I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. But just phenomenal. I actually have her album. She
Oh,
gave
he's
us a
moving.
vinyl. So this is yeah, we got oh, there
Oh,
you are. You can see your reflection. But this is, yeah, Kelly, this is her album, The Sacrificial Code. Really,
okay,
really neat. So
cool.
anyway, so we have a collaboration. So we did our brass quintet. We went to Brooklyn not this past March, but the March before.
Hmm.
Um, we recorded in a studio there. Um, and that's going to be, I think, half of the album. I think the other part of the album may include some wind stuff. I'm not sure,
Okay.
but we're awaiting the release of that. And once I get the release date, I think maybe they're looking at October. But that'll be a really cool thing, and I think a really neat contribution to the brass world in terms of our repertoire. To my knowledge, I don't know how much uh, stuff like this exists, where it's very minimal,
Hmm.
and there's just a lot of drones. I mean, where you sit in the recording studio playing long tones all day,
Hmm.
it was tough. It was
Wow,
very
I
tough,
bet.
but there's like I remember Austin saying this really beautifully. It's a different level of virtuosity, to be able to just sit on notes and match and be with the other people. You're really thinking about your entrances and your releases and the way that you're holding the note much more than I think that we normally do. So it
Hmm.
was certainly a challenge, but really, really gratifying. Yeah.
Wow. It seems like it seems like non-minimalist music, when you're in a recording session, you figure out real fast when it's not a usable take. Not and not meaning that like that minimalist music that it takes a long time to notice when it's bad, but hopefully that's coming across correctly, where it's just like there's a little bit more subtleties, and especially some of that tonal stuff, like you can kind of recenter and then it can just kind of get a little bit off. And I'd imagine it's similar to like when Jim Nova records like a 23 voice arrangement for Star Wars, and he talks about how he has to like he has to record like the things in fifths, and if he lands on one, like he can actually have to like scrap like three whole takes of different parts that he's done if something doesn't layer correctly. It's like it's intonation wise, it's kind of, so you don't realize right away that it's out of tune, like with itself. It's like, so yeah, that's interesting. Like it's a different level of virtuosity. That's very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to hear that. Not when I'm driving, but I can't wait to
yeah.
hear that. And finally, you just played a recital in Minneapolis. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So in this recital, I'm hoping to kind of bring this on the road next fall. I'm looking at places to bring this on tour, and I'm actually talking with Shires. I'm a Shires artist, so we're talking about maybe finding some places that they might be able to help me out in terms of getting booked. But the
It'd be
title of the
scandalous,
recital
by the way. It'd be
is
scandalous if you were a Yamaha artist and you were like, "Yeah, I'm talking to Shires about taking it on the road." Yeah, that would be. It was just funny
wouldn't
when you were
that
like.
be? Oh, that'd be great. That'd be fierce.
Anyway,
I'd
I
love it. Yeah.
assumed you were a Shires artist when you said you were talking to them about bringing it on the road. So, but anyway.
Yeah, Yamaha wouldn't, but I'm thinking about just
All right. Sorry. What was it?
That's
What was
great.
it? What was it called?
It's called "Wouldn't That Be Queer,"
Okay.
and I actually got the name of the recital. It's the first tune that I play on the recital is it's called "Wouldn't That Be Queer," and it's by Amy Peach. Um, and it really has nothing to do with gayness. It's queer, sort of in the old fashioned sense of strange, or wouldn't that be queer
Hmm.
if the sun came out at night, or the cats and dogs walked around on their front legs. It's a very cute little waltz thing, but I thought it was just a cute tune. But it really sets the stage for the recital, which the whole point of the recital is I'm taking works that are not explicitly queer and I'm queering them. So I'm presenting them through a new lens. I'm presenting them through queer narratives. I take the Grieg song cycle Haugtussa, which is originally about a young woman who falls in love with this shepherd boy on the mountains, but instead I'm turning it into a story about two young women who fall in love, um, because there are none, especially from that time period.
Right.
So you asked this question earlier on, why is this necessary? And I got some comments about this recital. Well, what the hell is a queer recital, or why do you need this? Take any song about love that's ever that's been written, at least in the Western canon, in the 19th, 20th centuries. Obviously, you're getting stuff now that's being written that's more representative, but it's all about the heterosexual experience. um whether you like it or not, that's really what it's about and what it's conveying. So I am intentionally uh presenting these works, or that work specifically, through that narrative, because why the hell not? Also,
No,
Greek is dead and I don't care. And then the second half of the
he's
recital,
he's not
um
coming. He's not coming down
he's
for
not.
breakfast. Yeah.
What's she gonna do? What's she gonna do? Yeah. um the second half of the recital is like I sort of crafted my own song cycle, if you will. Oh, by the way, there's all of this has subtitles, projections,
Great.
so it'll um, so it's about sort of a queer coming of age. So we start with um, Dorothy Gates's "Unseen Things," and this is the only piece on the recital that's actually for trumpet.
Okay.
It's the first movement, called "Child Soul," and I really use that to just it's not a programmatic work per se. I do a lot of talking in the recital, and I talk about just the importance of letting a kid be a kid.
Hmm.
That child soul is so precious, so sacred, and it's important that you just let them be them
Yeah.
at excuse me, right from the beginning.
Hmm.
Then we move into a few songs by Libby Larson. This comes from her cycle Love After 1950. The first song is called Boy's Lips, and that's about coming of age, sexual awakening. And this is sort of a the sad part, which is, as a queer person, so the song talks about, we're behind grandmother's porch whispering about, a boy's lips are soft as baby skin. Just some beautiful poetry, some beautiful imagery. But as a queer person, and a lot of queer people don't really get to experience that. Um, you know, Talking with your friends when you're young, or
Right.
just because we're hiding so much.
Yeah, sure.
And it's such an important part, I think, of growing up.
Hmm.
So the way I'm presenting it is sort of, in terms of loss, but also hope, sort of for the next generation. Then after that, we have Big Sister Says, which is just about beauty standards. Big Sister Says beauty hurts, and all the things that, you have to, uh, clamp your, what is it, eyelashes with a medieval looking padded clamp, and the razor blades on the tender armpit skin, and just, all the crazy things that, in this case women, but all of us,
Hmm.
have to do to appear, quote, beautiful.
Hmm.
And this, I think, is a universal thing. Every person,
Right.
women, men, gay, straight, whatever,
Hmm.
that we all, feel this pressure to adhere to a certain norm in order to appear beautiful or to be loved or accepted. Um, so then, and it's presented in such a humorous way too. It's like a honky tonk kind of genre. There's this Jerry Lee Lewis piano riff.
Hmm.
Um, and then we move on to Boy's Lip. No, I already said that. Blonde Man. And this one I didn't. So I'm talking a lot. But the two,
You're being
those,
interviewed, Luke.
I'm okay. You're right. No, you're right. You're right. That's a good point. The, those last two. Why am I talking so much?
Yeah, like this is weird. I feel like he just keeps asking me questions.
Is he ever going to talk? Should I ask him a question? um, um, the last two tunes the Libby Larsen ones, are on my album. They're the last two songs on the album.
Hmm.
This other tune from Love After 1950 called Blonde Man, I did not include on the album, but this one is just, I love it. And it starts out, it's supposed to be, it's a torch song, and it's about how this person hates blonde men. It says, I think I ought to warn you that I hate blonde men. I hate the greenish gold of their eyelashes, and the blue of their eyes, how it turns into rainbows. And the final thing is, I hate with the shock of a bright blonde head slanting above me, um, against the covers of my dark blue uh, bed or whatever. So
Right.
clearly, this person is infatuated with blonde men,
Right.
but it's just steeped in irony and lust, and
Right.
so that one's just about,
Hmm.
this good old fashioned sex and lust, because why not?
Sure.
Um, and then finally, we move on to the last song in the program, which is by Lori Laitman. It's called The Metropolitan Tower, and it's about falling in love for the first time.
Hmm.
Um, so and, that one's kind of just self-explanatory, but I really wanted to weave a narrative,
It's
from
great.
childhood through adulthood,
Hmm.
that kind of express these, inherently queer themes, but I think are relatable to anyone.
It's great. Yeah, thinking about people who are like, what the hell is a queer recital anyway? Those tend to be big, like free market people, like just like free market no matter what, like, like with no qualifications. So, like, if you maybe want to be like intellectually consistent, then, let the silly people like Dr. Spence come up with their silly ideas. And if it doesn't resonate with anybody, then the market's going to take care of it. And people like Dr. Spence are going to go away. But it turns
Yeah,
out
then
that
I'll,
that's going to actually resonate with an awful lot of people, like, right? And yeah, and
right.
so yeah, that's yeah, it can be a little frustrating playing whack-a-mole with those people. But and wearing my music business consultant hat, like you can't make art for everybody. Period. Like there are some people
Right.
who might even have heard just what you explained and are really genuinely happy that it exists and that you're doing that and have no interest in seeing it, right? And they're not wrong
Right.
and they're not right and they're just everybody get, and then there are other people who are like, I need to see that. And because I make everything about me, I was thinking during that, I was like, I owe it to myself to put this much thought into a recital program because I'm kind of like I'm a little bit stale, with like what I've been playing And I got some war horses that I can just like whip off with like, like about 20 minutes of polishing, because I've been playing them for so long, and.
Right.
But yeah, so that's inspired me to kind of, to think about things. So that's wonderful. That's great.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's really great. That's a lot to think about, like in a good way. So, well, I hope you're able to take that on the road with Conselmer or whoever it was that you were Shires. I'm just kidding,
Getson,
Shires.
yeah, who knows?
Don't email me. No, that's wonderful. I wish you the best there. And okay, we're gonna close with this. Do you have a practicing tip?
Yes. So I think it was the best advice I think I received in terms of practicing. It's something that I preach to my students all the time, is the 20 on, 10 off method.
Mhm.
Um, and in I forget who, it may have been Roy Poper at Oberlin, may have been Gecker. Um, but you set a timer. But what I do is before all of this, I'll spend time to plan out my practice sessions. Um, so I'll plan out each 20-minute session. I'll say, okay, I'm going to do some Clarks for 20 minutes. I'm going to, play my solo for 20 minutes. I'm going to, do Schlossberg for 20 minutes. You set a timer and you just go for 20 minutes. You do that, and then 10 minutes off, you're off the horn. And I don't need to explain to you that this is just it's a fantastic way of practicing because your rest is built
Mhm.
in. And also it helps with concentration. I mean, you can do those 20-minute bursts and be incredibly productive
Yeah,
versus sitting there for 2 hours and you don't get shit done.
right.
Raise your hand if,
That's
yeah.
right.
So I love doing that. And I don't do it all the time. But I find that it's incredibly productive when I do. So can't advocate for that enough. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, super. Me at my absolute best in the practice room can get like maybe 10 times more done than me at my worst in the practice room. Like even today, like just like in terms of it. And when I say worst, I'm almost always mean focus. Like, right. I like,
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 10 times more efficient when I'm at my absolute peak versus when and it's usually somewhere in the middle in either direction. But
Sure. Sure.
that's great. I love that was super short and actionable. So which the two podcasts I host are neither of those things. So they're neither short nor actionable. So yeah, it's real clear he's like fired up about entrepreneurial musicianing, but I don't know what he wants me to do. Yeah. So yeah, you should pay for an hour of coaching. It's the same lack of clarity. I'm just kidding. So this is wonderful. This is really, really great. It's always great to it can be very fascinating to talk to somebody who's got like a thing going on, right? Like, you're
Mhm.
like principal, whatever, of some really big ensemble, and that's really interesting. But like you, between International Pride Orchestra and the album and the professorship and and your two brass quintets and this recital that you're looking like you got a lot of irons in the fire, which is cool. And hearing you talk about each of them, it's clear that you are passionate about all of them, which is great. You're not just checking boxes. So,
Well, actually, I mean, when you lay it all out like that, you're making me second guess a lot. So no,
yeah,
no, sir. The older I get, not that I'm super old, but I'm just like I want to do stuff that's meaningful.
yes,
I'm tired. I'm tired of doing stuff that doesn't fill my cup. So that's what I'm kind of dead set on. And I might be busier. This has been the busiest year of my life, but I am by far the most fulfilled. So I'm going to keep on keeping on in that direction.
I am not going to predict that your human journey is going to exactly mirror mine, or even parallel it. But I bet in some ways it will, and specifically in this regard, is like yeah, I'm about to turn 48 here in a month and a half, and like as you start getting like towards 50, and I bet it's going to be even more so in my 50s, like you start thinking about impact, like in terms of
Mm,
what you're doing. And then it's like, okay, well, if I say yes to this adjunct teaching job, it's like, which is a lot of work and a little pay, and not that it's no impact, but and you just start to reallocate time because you don't know
right.
when it's going to be up. So yeah, so it's yeah, it's vital. Well, good for you for making such an impact and having such a clear vision of what you want to do in the first place. I mean, that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Took
yeah,
a while.
that's
Took a lot of therapy too. So Can't recommend that enough.
That's in
Go
all
to therapy.
seriousness.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
seriously.
not something that like very many people would have said out loud 20 years ago. Right. I mean,
No.
it's not nobody, but it's closer to nobody than a bunch of people. And now it's like, it's not, you can say, yeah, I'm in therapy and it's like actually okay. So, yeah, that's a great message to end on. So, well, Dr. Luke Spence, we are going to have you hang on for the bonus episode. And actually, which is available to all Patreon patrons. If you go to patreon.com/the Brass Junkies, then you can get access to this exactly 1 week after the main interview here airs. And there's like a long list of other trumpet knuckleheads and also all the other brass instruments that you can some brilliant stuff in there. And also, I would say most importantly, you help make this thing possible because it's a lot of money where there's a lot of recurring costs and it all helps. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you to everybody who has done that. And a couple of questions that I've got lined up for Luke here in the bonus episode is who is someone you've worked with in the brass world who you look up to and why? And then also a very cool chart on his website about his trumpet lineage, which like in terms of like teachers, which we're going to unpack, it's like Arbin is on there. Yeah, like Stamp. And it's very cool. So I'm going to talk to him about that. And then one surprise question, which I didn't give him ahead of time. So, just to make him sweat between now and when I ask it. So,
Come on,
yeah.
man. That wasn't in the contract.
there was there was no contract. B, if you think you're getting paid for this, I got some bad news for you. So
I'm hanging up now.
unless your interview leads to like 100 new Patreon patrons, then I'll give you like $50. So well, see, this is the key of academia. You call it an honorarium, which just means I'm going to pay you like a shockingly low percentage of your actual worth, but you're going to be honored. But
I hope you feel honored.
Because it's at a school. Yeah, because if a church offered me an honorarium to play on Easter, I'd be like, you just need to pay me. Like, yeah, you just need to like just pay me, the going rate for a tuba player on Easter. But anyway, I digress. So again, patreon.com/the Brass Junkies. Thank you very much, Luke. And that is going to do it for another episode of the Brass Junkies.